What would the Roman Empire be like if it had survived into the 20th century? Would we be watching Wide World of Gladiators? This episode, Bread and Circuses, is a fascinating example of Gene Roddenberry's parallel worlds theory, which recurred throughout the show's 3 seasons. Imagine planets and civilizations whose evolution paralleled our own, but with some interesting modifications. Imagine a Nazi-like culture with thermonuclear capability, a frightening premise explored in Patterns of Force. Inspector of the Gun, Kirk and company are transported to a 19th century frontier town where they are mistaken for the enemies of Wyatt Earp. In another episode, a piece of the action, the natives of Iosha fashion themselves after Chicago gangsters of the Roaring Twenties. But for now, let the games begin in Bread and Circuses.
My book.
A book?
It's a book. Everybody on the show's got a book.
You've read it, I trust.
I want you all to buy my book, and I want you to read about what's, what it was really like.
It's called Warped Factors, a Neurotic's Guide to the Universe.
I mean, I didn't even know that there was a book out called Son of Zarabeth.
And I wrote about it in my book, The World of Star Trek.
The least painful birth I've ever been through.
Everybody has a book. If you notice, everybody on the show's got a book. And I waited 30 years before I put my nose into that trough.
My wife and I have just finished a book called the Star Trek Sketchbook.
But after 30 years of listening to the crap that Gene Roddenberry had to say about me, I finally got it up to here.
Oh, yeah, I read everybody's book. Everybody's book.
Shucks darn, I can't make another sale on you then.
Well, Gene Roddenberry wanted all his girls to look just so.
You like what you see.
He always had a good time. He enjoyed the entire format, and he liked mostly putting girls in very sexy outfits.
I am now programmed to please you also.
You have to realize there were falling hose, boots. Mini skirt was the fashion of the day.
I get a lot of flack from women's groups today saying, how come that you didn't fight wearing that uniform, with the shorts, with the miniskirt? How come you didn't fight that? I said, I didn't want to fight it. I liked the look.
Creating the diverse worlds and civilizations encountered by the Enterprise was the ultimate production challenge. We worked on a very tight budget and were forced to recycle various sets, props, and wardrobes, and even actors. So the trick was to give them a totally unique look every time. In Bread and Circuses, we used the same sets that were used in earlier episodes, such as Miri and A Piece of the Action. And since Cecil B. DeMille had shot his epics, Cleopatra and the Crusades, on the same Paramount lot where we shot Star Trek, bits of the wardrobes from these movies found their way into this episode.
Just started recently. I wasn't aware of the impact of this Star Trek. I went to the one at the Hilton by the LAX, and it was incredible. There were people walking around there for 3 days wearing the Trekkie uniforms, and there was a guy and his wife from New York were there on their honeymoon, but they stayed at the Hilton for 3 days and wore the Trekkie outfits and shot at each other with their little laser guns, and everybody was walking around, and it was really exciting. I mean, it was fun. Then I went up to Canada, a place called Vulcan. It's a little town southeast of Calgary, Alberta. And every year they have this Vulcan pageant. And everybody wears long ears, like what Scarlett did. It's incredible.
By Star Trek's second season, the working relationship between the series creator Gene Roddenberry and producer-writer Gene Kuhn was running like a well-tuned engine. Though this episode was co-written by Kuhn and Roddenberry, more often they acted as a clearinghouse for the show's other writers. In lively meetings, their creative sparks ignited as they shaped the writers' story ideas, and later when the outlines came in, they worked together again on the revisions. Then Kuhn, a warp-speed typist, would do major rewrites and pass them on to Roddenberry's office. The result, some of the best Star Treks ever.
The Roman Empire flourished for hundreds of years. The ruling powers of the empire thought the key to survival was to keep the people happy. Give them what they want. That way they won't question their rulers, won't question their government. So the emperor made sure they were very happy. He gave them food, which filled their stomachs, and entertainment, which occupied their minds. The people were none the wiser, for he gave them bread and circuses. This is the first episode that really describes the Prime Directive, the moral code of non-interference that would become the cornerstone of Star Trek philosophy. The Prime Directive prevents members of Starfleet from interfering in the normal development or affairs of another society. In reality, however, it was a rule designed to be broken. The Prime Directive is actually a dramatic construct created by Star Trek's writers. It puts our heroes, Kirk, Spock, and the rest, in the position of having to break the rules in order to solve a problem. And this puts them in jeopardy. If we were to total all the times that Captain Kirk and his crew have broken the Prime Directive, I'm sure it would be enough to have them all thrown out of Starfleet. Bread and Circuses marks the first and only reference in Star Trek to contemporary religious beliefs. Gene Roddenberry tried to omit all references to religion from the series, partially because of his own beliefs. He also felt that organized religion wouldn't exist in the 23rd century. So it's surprising that he let this episode, with its Christian overtones and reference to the Son of God, slip by. Bread and Circuses is also a wry commentary on the business of television. This episode was produced in 1967. It foreshadowed the television of the 80s and 90s, complete with gladiators and human suffering. As they say, anything for a rating.